Good afternoon, everyone. This is John Pollock, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the Actuarial and Underwriting Committee of TWIA for the purpose of evaluating and prioritizing the 7 respondents to the RFP. At this point, I'd like to call roll and see who is on the line.
So you want to just do that?
Well, I can do it. I lost my list.
It's right there. There you go.
Oh.
The committee. You could just
Oh,
call the
gotcha.
roll.
Okay.
Carry on and on.
Debbie King?
I'm present.
Okay, she's here. Tony? Did I?
Here.
Okay. David Futterleap?
I'm here.
Okay. Marilyn Hamilton?
I'm here.
Georgia Neblett?
I'm here.
Carice Morrison?
Here.
And Stephen Alexander?
Here.
All right, we've got everybody here. So with that, I'll take you through the agenda.
We'll let Debbie turn it over to Debbie.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to you, Debbie.
Okay. Thank you. I would like to call the meeting to order of the TWIA Actuarial and Underwriting Committee. It's 1:32. So all members are present. Thank you for calling in today. I would like to first ask Mike Perkins to remind us of the antitrust statement and statement of potential conflicts of interest.
Thank you, Chairman King. Just remind everyone that the antitrust statement at TWI does apply to this board committee meeting. And now to move on to the conflict of interest disclosure. Chapter 2210 of the Texas Insurance Code requires TWI board members and certain committee members to make public conflict of interest disclosures with respect to matters before any discussion or vote thereon. Such potential conflicts of interest include a financial or personal interest in an entity that may benefit financially from the outcome of the discussion or vote, and holding an insurance policy issued by the association that may be affected by the discussion or vote. Today's meeting is a meeting of the TWI Actuarial and Underwriting Committee, whose members are Debbie King, Tony Schrader, Marilyn Hamilton, Georgia Neblett, David Futterleap, Carice Morrison, and Stephen Alexander. Today's meeting agenda includes the following topics that TWI staff has determined may have the potential to trigger required disclosures: review of responses to the request for proposals for TWI actuarial services and determination of final candidates. In connection with discussion and voting on the foregoing, the following disclosures are hereby made by the committee members named below. Debbie King is employed by a TWI member insurer. Georgia Neblett is a TWI policyholder. David Futterleap is employed by a TWI member insurer. Carice Morrison is employed by a TWI member insurer that is affiliated with an agency that is paid commissions by TWIA. Stephen Alexander is a property and casualty insurance consulting actuary. If any committee member is aware of any other disclosure that needs to be made at this meeting, please speak up. Are there any questions from the committee members? Thank you, Chairman King. You can proceed with your agenda.
Thank you, Mike. The first thing we will do is to review and approve the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes, and are there any amendments? Hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor? Please say aye.
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 All opposed? No. Motion carries. So minutes are approved as stated. The next on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anyone that is there for public comment today?
Chairman, we do not have anyone here other than TWI staff and one guest, Mr. Mucker Heidi, with the Department of Insurance.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Debbie, this is Corey. Can we find out if there's anyone else on the call today? I was just curious if there's anyone else in attendance, since we didn't kind of do a introduction.
Good point. Thank you. Is there anyone else that has dialed in that could? If so, could you please state who you are?
Tim McCarthy, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance Companies.
Thank you, Tim. Possibly that's it. Okay. Thank you. Our next on the agenda is the review of the responses for the RFP for TWIA Actuarial Services. So that is our goal today, is to review the RFPs that have been submitted. We had 7 come to us. It was a pretty short response time, so we're very appreciative of all the companies that responded to give us a choice and to offer your services. We appreciate that. To help us get along in the process, TWIA staff has gone through a scoring process. I think all of you saw a exhibit that came out sent by Amy that showed the scores for the various categories that were identified. There was a scoring matrix, I guess, with identified categories and how each of the firms that responded would score in each of these categories. The categories were weighted based on potential importance. Not that they all aren't important, but there was a weighting scheme where some of the categories got a little more weight than others. And then there was a final score and ranking. I'd like to ask, and I hope if you all saw that or have any questions on that, please speak up through this, because it's sort of important that you at least understand the process. I would like to ask Jerry Fadden maybe to give us a little more background on that, so that we can use this as a starting point for our discussion today. Jerry, if you would mind just walking us through how this was done and what the outcome was.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. King. At the end of the day, the decision is in the hands of the Actuarial and Underwriting Committee, but we thought it would be helpful for some members of the staff to spend time reviewing the proposals and provide a scoring of them against a criteria that we established and, as Debbie described, provided weightings for. So we had a total of 100 points, and they were allocated generally 15 points to general expertise, experience, and qualifications, and that was intended to cover both the firm and the team. Then we had 25 points associated with specific expertise and experience and qualifications, and that generally had to do with experience in providing rate indications to either government or quasi-government entities or residual markets, and experience with catastrophe-exposed wind and hail policies. And then we sort of further elaborated on portfolios in the Gulf of Mexico other than Florida, and then Florida and the East Coast. And then finally, within specific expertise, soliciting or evaluating them with respect to their experience and expertise, providing rate indications where there's sparse historical industry and or company hurricane loss experience. So again, that specific expertise category was provided 25 points. And then the third category is the use of catastrophe models in rate making. As you'll recall from the December 10th board meeting, where this RFP was approved, there was an interest in having the actuarial firm provide their insights into the catastrophe models generally, and including more specifically some explanation or discussion around the differences that we've experienced between the RMS and AIR model outputs. We gave that use of catastrophe models 20 points. The fourth item is clarity of proposals, and this related to both the presentation and the ability to understand what they're presenting. It also included the work plan and whether we thought the work plan evidenced a capability to do the work on time and in a professional manner. And that was provided 25 points. And then lastly, cost was afforded 15 points. Just with respect to cost, we deliberately chose not to seek fixed price bids. We didn't think that was appropriate for this kind of engagement where generally the actuarial firms don't know the complexity or the quality of our data and wouldn't be able to commit definitively to an amount of staff hours and hourly rates ahead of time. So we wanted to include cost, and you'll see that in our rankings, but we understand that at the end of the day, there's some variability there. So that was the rating scale that we chose. The committee obviously does not have to incorporate that precise scoring or even categories into their decision. They're free to choose whatever factors they individually and collectively want. But we thought those would be helpful. As was mentioned, we sent out requests to 15 companies. We received proposals from 7. As you'll see on the sheet, we've given each of the 7 companies a code name to facilitate a little bit more open communication today. But that may, I would encourage us to, rather than to refer to the company by name, if we can, with the sheets you have in front of you, refer to them as company D or A or B or C, recognizing that can be a little tricky to follow, but hopefully it will be helpful in terms of an open communication, open discussion, and the like. So we had 5 staff members, including myself and our senior actuary, Shu Lee, and then 3 others, read the proposals and then score them individually and privately. And then we compiled those scores, and as you can perhaps see in the pages that we sent around, an attempt to sort of, quote, normalize the scores to account for those staff members who might be tougher graders compared to others. Now, with the actuaries on the phone, there may have been a multitude of ways to handle that challenge statistically, and I'll take credit or blame for what we did here, but and I'll walk through it, but that was what we attempted to do, and at the end of the day, based on those normalized scores, rank the firms in decreasing order of how they scored against this criteria. The objective of today's discussion is to narrow the field down to a manageable group of parties that would make presentations to the committee and field questions. Whether that manageable group numbers 3 or 4, I'll leave to the committee to determine. As you all know, we have a meeting scheduled for March 23rd to have those presentations and make a final decision with respect to a winner and perhaps a backup alternative. And we have, I think the meeting is scheduled for 11 to 3. And so, it does, and it was scheduled to start at 11 originally to provide for travel time, but I want to note that in light of the current environment, we are inclined, I suppose it's up to the committee to make a determination, but we are inclined to try to have those presentations by teleconference or ideally video conference to avoid the necessity for certain respondents to travel if they're otherwise uncomfortable with it. If we were to do that, we would sort of make a blanket decision to have everyone present electronically so that no one sort of felt and was pressured to seek an advantage by showing up personally. But that again is up to the committee. I'll stop there before I jump into the scoring and just ask if there are any questions.
Yeah, this is Corey. I have a question. So, as I understand it, the 7 are individuals that, if it was 7, right, or how many were in total on the committee making the evaluation?
5 on the staff. I'm sorry, and the committee. I don't know the precise number.
I'm sorry. So there was 5 on the staff that, when they reviewed the proposals, the names of the companies were masked as well. Is that right, when they were looking through the proposals?
No, it was sort of practically inconvenient while that would be perhaps a worthwhile effort, it was difficult to take each of the proposals and kind of blacken the name.
Okay.
So we didn't do that. And therefore.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
And so therefore, do you know of any relationship that any staff member had with any of these actuary firms that applied?
I'm confident that there isn't in a relationship, but I have to confess we didn't ask that specifically. But I think, speaking for myself and Shuli and Denise and others, I didn't mean to name the others. Looking down the way, I think you can assume there were no relationships.
Thank you.
That's not to say, and I should hasten to add this, that each of us may have prior experiences with some of the firms and maybe not all of the firms, and in my own personal experience, that can't help but influence you a little bit. But we tried very much to evaluate the firms based on our understanding of their position in the market and what they've presented.
Yeah, I understand. That makes sense. I mean, yeah, the names are all recognizable to many folks that are in the industry, so that would not be unusual. I was just wanting to know if anyone had any prior experience in employment with those firms.
Are there any other questions?
Jerry,
Okay.
yes, this is Debbie. Just a couple of clarifications for all of our committee members. If we will refer to companies as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, I guess is what we would like to do rather than names today, correct?
Yes, from my standpoint,
Yes.
Jerry.
Okay. Yes. Okay. And the other thing to clarify is that ideally we would like to get down to 3 or 4. There's no mandate that we do that. We can, if we felt 5 were potentially, we wanted to hear from. I mean, it's totally up to us what number we end up with at the end of the day. Would that be correct?
From my perspective, yes. I think the only constraint is mental capacity to sort of weigh 5 and
Yes.
time to entertain 5. But again, it's up to the committee,
Right.
and so we'll do as they say.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So going on to the rankings, and before I do, I sort of accept that it's easy to slip and refer to a company by name. I originally had this kind of code name approach in mind, presuming there would be more members, given it was an open meeting, that there might be more people listening from the outside, and maybe they are and haven't identified themselves, but that was the original purpose. But in any event, it's quite possible to slip, and I'll try not to myself. But in terms of what we distributed, it kind of works from the 5th page back to the 1st page. So if you go back to the 5th page, you'll see the raw scorings of by each of the five evaluation committee members, the staff members of each of the companies by criteria. So again, if you're following me, you're looking at the presentation, staff member number 1 rated company A 15 on a scale of 0 to 15 in terms of their general expertise, experience, and qualifications. 20 in terms of their specific expertise, experience, and qualifications, 15 in terms of use of catastrophe models, 25 on clarity of proposal, and cost 10 out of 15, for a total of 85 points out of 100 for that respondent. You'll see differences between staff member number 1 and staff number 2, 3, 4, and 5 in some of the categories, but there may be a little bit of consistency. But as you can see, what we're trying to avoid is, in that case, staff member number 3, had a little bit different range. Well, each of them had different ranges, from a low of 8 to cost by number 2 to a high of 25 for clarity or specific expertise or clarity of proposal. So those are the raw scores, and as you'll see later, we tried to adjust for that. And so we have the scores for company A, B, C, D, E, F, and G there. One could just look at the average of those scores, just unadjusted, and you could consider a ranking in that regard, which would have company F being the highest, followed by company B, and then D, and A, and G. I may have missed something. Oh, C, and then G. And that may be sufficient, in terms of it is raw scores, and, you could sort of stop there. But, well, before I go on, are there any questions with respect to the raw score part of this?
Jerry, one quick question, because this is Debbie. I went through and did my own scoring, and it somewhat depends on what you're looking for, So just wonder, individually, like each person might have a different criteria in mind for that category. So I'm wondering if, when the 5 people did this, was there any talk about what these categories meant or what we were looking for? Was there any conversation before the scoring was done that would have?
I would say generally no. Okay. There's a little conversation other than sharing the criteria, and we kind of left it, as an open season, and each individual could have their own weighings or expectations or desires, and yes, that's the answer.
Okay, thank you.
So moving ahead, what you can see on page 4 is each of the you'll see the criteria at the top, and then in alphabetical order, company A, B, C, D through G down below, with the scoring by criteria. So again, the under number 1, that person gave most of the contestants, I'll call them, 15, with the exception of one, company G, which got a 10. I suppose that's not surprising, given we tried to target firms that were generally highly regarded and nationally or regionally recognized in terms of expertise and experience. So that result for staff member 1 is not surprising. So you'll see some of the others had a little more variation to it. And we go down through each category, each criterion that way with specific expertise, use of catastrophe models, and so forth. And then, as they say, if you're following along at home, we compared each of those scores to the average of the scores for that staff member. So, for example, in staff member 1 had an average score of 14.3 for general expertise, experience, and qualifications. You can see that on page 4. If moving to page 3, that results in, if you're looking at 15 divided by 14.3, for all the ones who got 15, it translates into 1.05. And for the company G, who received a 10 in that criteria, 10 divided by 14.3 is 0.7. So that, and I'm, as I say, I'm fearful discussing this adjustment approach with a bunch of actuaries, but hopefully it's either makes sense or it's confusing enough that we can move on. Are there any questions on that approach so far? Okay. So we did that for each staff member, for each company, for each criterion, and then a further weighting was to adjust that by points, so that we got back to the original weighing of criteria. So the adjusted scoring on page 3 of 5 is converted into a relative score, which adds up to the number of points in hundredths. So it's 0.15 for 15 for that criteria. So again, you'll see on that column under staff number 1, 0.16, 0.16, and so forth, down to 0.11 for the entity that got a 10. So that approach is done across the board, across the companies, across the criteria, and it's totaled down below, but perhaps more clearly presented on the first page, number 1 of 5, where we showed where it translates into a ranking 1 through 7. So company A was ranked number 3 by staff member 1. By staff members 1 through 5, it was 3, 4, 2, 2, and 5. And then company B, 2, 2, 4, 3, and 2, and so forth. Hopefully you can see that there. And for those of you who have color copies, the coloring is meant to highlight the lowest scores compared to the highest scores. So the number 1 companies are darker green than 7s, which are very light green. And then these were put in rank order based on the sort of the average or the total for all 5 individuals. So in order of ranking, it came out to company F, company B, company D, company A, E, C, and G in that order. And I think, at the end of the day, again, to repeat the objective, I don't know that we need a lot of debate on the differences between the number 1 and the number 2. Personally, the committee can decide what they want to do, but I think for purposes of the meeting and for, in the interest of time, determining whether we want 3 or 4 or 5, and that part of it will reflate to sort of who gets cut off that we might want to advocate for. But I think we can probably, there seems to be, at least for the staff, a viewpoint, and maybe the committee will agree, consistency in terms of 2 companies that were number 6 and number 7. So there seems to be a unanimity of view on those, but I'll leave it to the committee. So that's all I have to say about the ranking, but I'm happy to answer any questions and then would let the committee go forward and we can answer any questions then too.
Thank you. Go ahead. Any questions?
Yeah, Debbie, this is Corey speaking. Just some general questions. I know before we get into, again, that decision about how many companies or what companies, A through G, but I know, Jerry, you explained some of this at the board meeting, but again, to understand how we got to these 7 companies, were these all how do I say this? Have you presented to us all the companies that replied? Like, was there 8 or 9 or 10 companies that didn't even make the cut, or are these all the companies that responded?
These are all the companies.
Jerry,
Yes, I'm sorry.
excuse me for interrupting, but there's a big echo with everything that Corey is saying and Debbie is saying.
There's not an echo on this end, but is anyone else experiencing an echo?
Right. We're hearing it. I'm hearing it.
I hear it as well.
I can hear it too, Marilyn.
Yeah.
Is there someone in y'all's room that also may be on a phone or on a mic or something? Maybe it's in a conference room if some of y'all are talking from a conference room.
We're in a large conference room and there are speakers, so without being an expert, there's the possibility for reverberation from the speakers to the mics, but
That's probably it.
I'll leave it to the experts. It's among the things that I'm not.
Those in the TWIA office are not echoing. It's the rest of us that are echoing.
I didn't hear an echo on that. Do you hear it now?
No, that was clear.
I think, well, it's just sometimes then.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's coming
heard
and
that.
going.
Is there anything we can do about it, or should we just keep going, Jerry? Or is somebody working on it?
I think they're observing. I believe that we're having better results when we don't talk over each other, and possibly when I turn my mic off when I am not speaking, which I'll try to make sure I do. So if we don't have any, Georgia, do you still have an echo?
Not with you, but when Debbie spoke, it echoed.
Want to speak again, Debbie?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That was clear.
So it must be when you have your mic off, Jerry. Maybe it's okay. So.
Yes, I'll try to do that.
Okay. Clarice, could you repeat that question? I've now forgotten what it was.
I know. It was. I just wanted to find out, going back a step, how we got a little bit, a reminder of how we got to these 7 companies. I know some of that was shared at the board meeting, but just to make sure, are we seeing all the companies that replied to the RFP, or only certain companies? Was there any other further cut that was done before they were even presented to us? And maybe even before that, a reminder of how these 7 companies were contacted that got us to this point today.
Yes, I'll answer that. These are the 7 companies. These are the only companies who provided proposals. Out of the, I believe it was 15 that we contacted, the RFP documentation was emailed to them. We confirmed with them by telephone that we had the right email address. For some of the large firms, they have a central portal through which RFP requests are received, so we confirmed that. But these are the only ones we received. But I do find it curious that more didn't reply. but I don't know the answer to that. I haven't reached out. Frankly, I thought the 7 we had was a good representative group, and there was not somebody, any particular firm missing that I thought we had necessarily an urgent need to consider and to go further to solicit their proposal. So we have 7 out of the 15.
And thank you. And that was my next question. Of those 7 of 15 that responded, you feel comfortable, or does staff feel comfortable that there are qualified respondents out of this 7 that we should be considering, regardless of what their scores are? Just relatively, just generally speaking, is staff confident and comfortable with these respondents, that is a good pool of candidates for our committee to consider?
I don't want to speak on behalf of the entire ELT or the staff, but I feel that, and I think Lee agrees with me, that we have a good set of proposals to weigh. And you can see from the proposals themselves that they are, to varying degrees, qualified and sufficiently expert in these in this area to perhaps with the exception of one, we could work with any of them and feel that they have the capability to deliver a quality product.
And Carissa, this is Debbie. I felt that way as also. I feel like we have some very reputable firms here. If we would do this over again, I don't know that I think we have a very strong lineup to choose from. It's my feeling.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I agree as well, and I'm glad to hear Debbie, you say that, and Jerry say that. I think that helps give us confidence going forward that no matter who we pick, we've got a good pool of candidates to select from.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions of me about the scoring or the process?
Nope. Okay. There might be more, Jerry. I'm sure there will be more.
Sure. Well, thank you very
coming your
much.
way.
Let me make one other comment, which is that one of the proposals from Company A is what I might consider a joint proposal between, and this is a large company that happens to have an actuarial consulting service business and a reinsurance broker. And I think that firm is somewhat obvious, but I just want to highlight that they are presenting, a joint proposal, which includes presumably services from the actuarial side, but also information from the reinsurance brokerage side with respect to modeling. I only raised that because, and is backing up to the beginning, we had entertained, or my personal view was that the actuarial firms may not be the ideal source for insights into the technical differences between the RMS and AIR model. That remains to be seen whether that's valid or not, or maybe we won't determine that. But we considered splitting this into 2 RFPs, one for the actuarial rate-making part and one for the CAT modeling insights. I just want to add that while this RFP has been going on, we have reached out to RMS and AIR to make them aware of the issues that we're dealing with, and solicited from them a couple of things. One is price quotes on what it would cost if we licensed the models ourselves, or if we retained them to run the models on our behalf, and they are each putting together proposals for that. And some of this was in response to issues that came up during the August to December period, where rates were rate adequacy was being discussed. We also solicited from them, or we're sharing with them our validation analysis, including frequency assumptions, frequency by Saffir-Simpson category and geographic landfall and so forth. So we're soliciting from them additional information that they might have with respect to validation of the models specifically for Texas. I know there was some criticism about the reliance on the Florida Hurricane Modeling Commission, and so we're soliciting input on that. And then finally, we asked each of them specifically to provide their perspective on the nature of the difference in outputs between the RMS and AIR models. As you can appreciate, they're reluctant to speak about the other competitors' models. They may have some insights, but they don't have official knowledge, and so it remains to be seen whether they're able to be helpful on that. But in addition to those discussions, I have pushed on Guy Carpenter yesterday to say, look, we really need, or the board really needs help on this issue. We need, we need your deep understanding of the models, and we will together work out any constraints with RMS and AIR that they may be under with respect to licensing and confidentiality. But to the extent they can help us get our arms around this issue and make the board comfortable with the way in which the models are used for rate making, we'll do that. But I just wanted to put this RFP in a broader context of other things that will happen or happening in the hope of helping the Actuarial and Underwriting Committee and the board on these issues. So with that, I'll be quiet.
Jerry, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was, to me, the inclusion of that in Company A's proposal was a very big positive for me.
This is Steve Alexander. I totally agree with that. I think the inclusion of the modeling capability that Willis Re has is a big plus.
Okay.
And my only point there, and I'm sorry to jump in again, is that in that regard, as you know, although in a decreasing number, there are other reinsurance brokers whom we could solicit input on with respect to that activity. It's not their core business, and I am certain that Company A's motivations include, some hope that they will get other business down the road from this. But I just wanted to distinguish them from the others in that regard, and not to discount them or promote them, but just to flesh out the information. So again, I'll be quiet now.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, so I would like to get to the most efficient way to review this, but to give it enough time that we all feel comfortable with our picks. First, I'd like to ask if anyone else. I went through and did my own scoring. I had my own criteria. My views on each company varied a little from what Jerry just presented, because I was looking for things like specifically what we were struggling with, like if they were familiar with that we needed to determine a 1 in 100. It just seemed like it was difficult to sometimes in the write-ups to actually pull that out, to know if they really were aware of what we were struggling with. Some of the responses were better in that regard than others, so I scored based on if I thought that, not if they were fine, probably fine actuarial firms, that we need that, and we also need help with where we're stuck. And so that was my criteria, probably varied a little bit. My top four, I have one difference, I guess, in the top four. I have one of the staff pick is not in my top four. Another one that Company E is in my top four. Company D is not in my top four. So that's I would like to know if anyone else did a similar exercise, and then how did you line up with what we were presented with from staff?
Well, Debbie, this is Steve Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, there's two major factors that are driving the large indicated rate increases. There's the debt repayment schedule, and then there's also the hurricane models,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly the AIR model, which is causing TWIA policyholders to pay for all the reinsurance. So I think all the firms are well qualified to address the debt repayment and also other routine rate issues. But I think there's only one firm, Company A, that's licensed to use both the AIR and the RMS model, and is the only firm capable of doing a truly independent analysis of the models. It appears to me that all of the other firms would be dependent on Guy Carpenter to run the models. So my preference would be for Company A.
Just Company A. Well, I am totally in step with you, Steve. I understand knowing the indications are driven, huge portion of the indication is driven by the models and the reinsurance purchase. So that's when my scoring, I gave more weight to that because of that reason. And I agree with you. That is a very big advantage of Company A. I could not tell from the other responses if that capability existed in the firm. It was not specified. So I think Company A is a little more familiar with TWIA and the issues we're facing. So those were more addressed in the write-up than in the other firms. But I wasn't, sometimes it could be something we could explore if we would like to entertain having more than one come speak to us and explore that possibility.
Well, my understanding, based on our prior meetings, is that Guy Carpenter has taken the position that they don't know why there is a 56% difference between the AIR and the RMS models. I'm not sure that we're going to get full disclosure from Guy Carpenter, and that's why, in my opinion, I'd like to see more of a challenge and competition with the output that we're getting from Guy Carpenter.
This is Jerry. I might interject that, and hopefully this is not out of order, that Guy Carpenter has expressed the concern that their licensing agreement with the two modeling firms constrains their ability to share with us the detailed comparison. They have said, or I've been told by AIR and RMS, that Guy Carpenter has an understanding of it. And so we've solicited from Guy Carpenter more, and we'll deal with the licensing restrictions. But I think just to elaborate on where they're coming from.
This is Steve Alexander again. I'm looking at the Company A proposal, and they have a specific section in there where they describe a product that they have called their Event Analyzer. And it appears to me that the Event Analyzer could get to the bottom of what the differences are. So I think that's a real advantage.
So this is Corey. So one thing maybe to help this conversation along, it sounds as though Company A, and I'm not trying to persuade anyone, but that Company A should be one of the respondents, so to speak, above the line, so to speak, right, as coming to be invited to present to us at the next meeting. Debbie and Steve, y'all, based on the information I'm hearing from you, that would convince me enough that Company A should be one of the companies coming to us, making the next cut, so to speak, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I would certainly, Corey, if you would put that in a motion, I would second it. I'm not an actuary, so I read it read the proposals as would they answer questions that I have, or were they addressing them? And Company A came out number one in my rating.
Right. So I certainly agree with that as well. So I don't know if we want to do it maybe company at a time and then at the end make a motion for the companies we want to include back, or Debbie, do you want a motion right now on Company A and then we go to Company B and Company C, et cetera?
Well, maybe we should do it that way, go through each company, because to maybe we can agree. Maybe that would be an easier way to do it, Clarice, where we could agree on each company. I agree. Let's do that rather than try to get a list. So if we have a motion for Company A to entertain.
So moved.
For a second.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So Company A will be invited to present to us on March 23rd. Okay. Thank you. We could go down the list. Yes, please.
Yeah,
Trying
let's
to,
do that. Maybe we
okay.
should. Maybe that's fair to everyone then as well, right?
Right. We'll go to Company B. Company B is in the top four from staff. Company B also came out fourth in my list. If we're inviting four, I would be okay with that. But I would like to know if anyone else scored. I mean, I asked that earlier. Did anyone else score, make a list that you want to bring this up?
I'd like to make a motion that we limit the number of firms to 3.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Any opposed?
This is Clarice. I'm going to oppose it. I'm not opposed to there ending up being 3. I just didn't want to personally limit it. I just wanted to kind of go through them. We might end up with 3, but that's why I'm opposing it. Not because
I think if we
have
do, if we get down to 3, we're going to have to end up doing our evaluation a little differently, because if we go through each one, or is it above the line or below the line, and we get 3, we're done, but we may not get to everyone. So we'll have to rank them at the end, which we can do that. I'm just pointing that out. We'll have an extra step to take.
I'm opposed.
Did we get to,
that's fine.
this is Steve Alexander, did that motion actually pass or fail?
Well, this is Dave Futterleib. I just wanted to say I'm opposed as well for the same reason.
That's 2 in opposition. Do we have enough to pass?
I would say I'm opposed because of that as well. I'm worried that if let's not go down A, B, C, D, E, then let's go to the next strongest one to discuss. I think that might work.
Well, there's a motion on the floor. We have to either say it passed or did not pass.
Can we get a roll call vote, possibly, Mike? I don't know if it did pass or not.
Yes, of course. We'll be happy to handle that for you. The motion on the floor, one by Mr. Alexander, that was seconded by Ms. Nevlett, and it's motion that we agree to limit the number of finalists to 3, and we will now call the roll on that motion. Mr. Schrader, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Futterly?
No.
Ms. Hamilton?
I voted yes, but in view of the rationale for that not being a good idea, can I change my vote?
Yes, you're now voting for the first time.
Okay, then no.
Ms. Nevlett?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
No.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Chairman King?
No.
So we have 4 no votes and 3 yes votes. So the motion fails by 4 to 3.
Okay, thank you. We might end up with 3. I'm just like,
Yeah.
that's a good number.
This is John.
Maybe we should just go for.
This is John Pollock. I would like to make a suggestion that might be helpful. Rather than worry about the top 3 or 4, you might start from the other end. And does anybody disagree with cutting off, the bottom 3? And then you can just debate whether you want 3 out of the top 4 as opposed to going through all of them.
The bottom 3 based on staff recommendation.
Yeah,
So that would be
if everybody
E, C, and D.
if everybody agreed on that, then you're down to 4 that you can debate whether you want 3 or 4. But I think there might be more agreement on the bottom 3 than on the top 3.
Okay. One of those, company E, is actually my number 2. So I would agree on the bottom 2. But what is everyone else? Does anyone else have any concerns?
This is Steve Alexander. I would agree on the bottom 2.
As would I.
So this is Corey. So I'll make a motion that we eliminate company C and G.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Okay, so we have one company A in, and we have company C and G will not be invited to present. Okay.
Could we go back and start and now talk about those remaining 3?
There's 4.
4. Excuse me. 4.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go to company B.
Company B was being discussed, and Company B is staff has recommended as their second in the list. It also made my top 4. It was 4th out of 4. After that, Company B has, I think, what has going for it is it has worked with other pools, and so I think that expertise was what brought it up in the staff recommendations. I did not pick up that they had modeling capability. I think that might be true of the others, but there was nothing mentioned specifically about Texas or Texas statutes or differences in Texas pool versus other pools. So that was why I probably didn't rank them higher, but I think it's a capable firm and would do a good job. But any other thought? Anybody else have thoughts on Company B?
This is Dave Futterleaf. I'd just say I appreciate the fact that they have worked with other wind pools.
And this is Corey, so I do as well. I think that is something that is worth considering, and because of that, I would like to hear from them at the next round.
Okay.
Steve Alexander. I agree with that also.
Okay. Do we have a motion to add Company B to our presentation list?
So moved. This is Corey.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? A motion carries. So Company B will be added to our list. The next on the list from staff recommendation, the third was Company D. Company D is one I did not have Company D in my top 4. I was not as impressed with the experience of the team that was assigned. The team lead that was assigned to us had very little experience. That's not saying that would remain, but that was something that I wasn't, I didn't know that would be is what we need, what we're looking for. And there was very little time allotted in their RFP for. It was only 3 to 5 days for reviewing the CAP model, and I think we've all said that's the bulk of our concern right there. I mean, I think we could spend weeks on the CAP model. So I was just, I don't know, just maybe not understanding what we're looking for, but I wasn't picking it up. That was why it dropped out of my top 4. But did anyone else notice or have any other thoughts around that?
I agree. I think we ought to eliminate Company D.
Any other thoughts?
So I'll make a motion to eliminate Company D.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Company D will be off the list to present. Thank you. I think I missed one at the top. Sorry. Company F. I was not going the right order. Company F actually had the highest score from staff. Company F was my 3rd pick. This is a company that has worked with TWIA in the past. They're well known for their actuarial work, as all these companies are, but they're strong level of expertise. Again, it would be the same as anyone except Company A, where they would be using model output from Guy Carpenter. They do specialize. They do comment that they specialize in coastal property. I just want to mention one thing that I should have said earlier. I didn't put as much emphasis on the price that each of these firms gave to us. We haven't really made that an issue, but I noticed that the number of hours varied tremendously. I think they're just guessing because they don't quite know yet what's involved. So I don't know that the price is going to come out hugely different from any of them at the end, but, so I put less emphasis on that. But this company was in my top 4. It was in staff's top pick. Do we have any other observations from anyone on Company F?
Well, I'm glad you made the comment about cost, because I pretty much eliminated that as a factor because of the way the cost is estimated. Because I think the proposals we're seeing today and what they guesstimate it's going to be will be very different from the actual work done. So I eliminated cost at this point from consideration.
Yeah, this is Corey, so I would agree. At this point, I don't think that's necessarily a factor. It will be possibly at the end, but today, not so much. And Debbie, I agree with a lot of the comments you've made, and I would say, I guess, for one primary reason is, the outcome of staff's review, putting it at the top in almost every case. I would like to make a motion that Company F, as in Frank, is considered to be invited for the next round.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Alexander, I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So Company F will be invited to present to us on the 23rd. That leaves one company left, Company E. Company E was not in the top 4 from staff. It was actually my 2nd pick. it had basically because I liked the staff that was assigned for this project. I thought it was very strong. I thought that was something I really put a lot of emphasis on when I reviewed, because I think based on all that's going on with our needs, with the environment that we're in, and I felt like we needed strong actuaries to do the work, to present, to really dig into things for us. I liked, experience for people that take the initiative to dig into something or present it, have the confidence to present it in a different way than maybe a cookie cutter approach. That's what I appreciate. So that's why they rose in my eye. But it depends if we want 4. We already have 3, but that's why they rose up in my ranking. Do we have anybody have thoughts on that?
I'm also in favor of Company E coming to present to us. I think it's a worthwhile firm from a standpoint of needing to hear what they have to offer and their perspective on this situation. So I would be, welcome to hear from their presentation at the next round.
Corice, I'll second that.
This is Dave Futterleib. I don't have an opinion, I guess, on whether we should include them or not. One thing to keep in mind, though, is I guess my thoughts a little bit. People have mentioned cost, and it's not as important, and I completely agree with that. But looking at hourly rates, I think, can be instructive, and it seems like this firm has higher hourly rates than other firms. And then the second thing I would say is that I was not as impressed with their presentation as I was certain other firms. So that's kind of on the negative side, but at the same time, I'm not necessarily opposed to including them in the last round.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Yeah, that is a good point. We're dealing with a little bit. Depending on the firm, as we will know, and the level of experience that those people have, and the firm's reputation. Hourly rate goes up a little. So that's very true. They also had estimated more hours, which I thought was probably more realistic of where it was. So that's why their total came out higher. But if you look at the number of hours, in some cases it's double some of the other firms. So,
I think we've got a motion and a second on the floor, Debbie.
do we have a second? Sorry, yeah. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? So motion carries. So company E will also be invited to present, which gives us 4. We have
Company D. We made a decision on D, as in David.
D did not. We voted to not include D.
Very good. I just want to make sure I had my stack in the right order. Thank you.
This is David Futterleib. This is probably way too late to ask this question, but somebody asked a question about whether TWIA staff had any connection to any of the firms that we're evaluating. I was just wondering if we should disclose any material relationship to the firms we're discussing. Thoughts on that?
I think that's a good idea. I do not have any connection to any of these firms.
This is Dave Futterleib again. I also do not have any connection.
This is Steve Alexander. I don't have any connections.
It's Georgia Neblett. I can promise you I don't have any.
This is Corey. So I may be the only one. This is Corey Morrison, and I'm familiar with some of these firms, as you see, because they are firms for other wind pools that I am associated with and other organizations I'm associated with. So it's other external boards and committees that I'm on, not directly. I don't have any direct relationship with them through my employer. I don't know that these firms, they may have a relationship with us, but personally I don't. It's only through my board participation with other insurance industry committees, wind and other, not just limited to wind.
Okay, thank you for that. I think I heard Tony as well. Did you have something to add?
I was just saying I have no connection with it.
Okay.
And no connection from me either, Marilyn.
Thank you, Marilyn. Okay. We're all in the business, so over the years you run into various people, or you've maybe worked with that firm, but Jerry and I had a conversation about this just to be sure we were all, being totally unbiased. It's sometimes having a firm with a good reputation or one you've worked with is a plus, and it's good to know that. It's good for us to bring that experience to the table as well. So, you can't be totally unbiased in the way that, a good reputation comes along to us when we vote. So it's, anyway, but no direct connection on my part. So we have achieved our goal, which is to invite 4 companies. That would be company A, E, or A, B, E, and F. I got that right. To present to us either, I guess we will be notified if that's through a video conference or in person, or we will be notified, I suppose, maybe, John, by next week, this week, or when would we know?
We can, the gating item is working out the technical arrangements, but we'll do that this week.
Okay, so we will find out soon.
I would like to know before we close, is there anything else the committee would like to have us prepare for the next meeting, whenever it is?
This is Steve Alexander. Isn't there a pending series of questions that you are going to investigate and report back to us? It seems like it's been about 3 months.
This is Jerry. There was that recommendation from the Actuarial and Underwriting Committee to the board. There was, in my recollection, that proposal was not voted on by the board. Nevertheless, we're endeavoring to provide that information, and we will have it in time for the, and we have some of it already, and I'm happy to share that with you. But you will have it in time for the rate review in August, well before then. We hope.
Some of those items will probably be requested by whichever firm we end up choosing, I would assume too. So if that is possible to get that out fairly soon, Jerry, that would be great. I think that there was a little confusion there at the board meeting. I remember I wasn't sure if it really did get voted on or not, but thank you for clarifying. Do we have any other questions, or is everyone, or about the process? Go ahead.
This is Corey. Is there any other information, though, that we should be asking of these 4 respondents as they prepare their presentation? So I heard a couple of things that we're asking more about understanding on the modeling and whatnot. Maybe it would be fair to provide to them a few more questions, if that's appropriate, Debbie, to make sure that their presentations address whatever concerns we may have. if that's, or whatever additional information we think we need to see from them that might not have been presented to us in their packets.
That's a very good point, Carice. Thank you. I think that what we are going to ask, I can imagine anyway, what we would be asking them on the 23rd is a lot about some of the issues we struggle with. So how would you help us determine the 1 in 100? How would you determine the big gap between these two models? What would you do? I think that would be a good thing for each of them to respond to us in that, what they have done, what they would do, what they could add to the process. That's my thought.
This
Any
is
other
Jerry. I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me propose the following. We will put together a list of questions based on what we've heard today and what we've been hearing over the course of the last several months. We'll put together a set of questions, and I'll circulate that to the committee and solicit your input. If there's some particular question that you don't think we'll think of, obviously email us and we'll get it on the list. But hopefully we know enough to get the right questions out and in front of you. And then once agreed or once complete, we will forward that to the 4 respondents that we're inviting back.
I think that's a good plan, and to make sure that you put it to them in writing in all the same manner. So then again, it's fair. So all 4 respondents have the benefit of the same question. So there's, leaves less to interpretation if it was done over the phone or some other way.
I agree. Thank you for bringing that up, Carice. And Jerry, we'll wait. We will look for your email, and we can each respond with our top questions. Anything else to add?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Meeting adjourned. Thank you to everyone for all your time today.
Thank you, Debbie, and staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.